Now, the archaeologist behind the Mandir truth, KK Muhammed, has countered Mandir betters. Muhammad, who has been recounting that he saw the Mandir message. Let's also listen into what he has to say.
Mr. Muhammad, thanks very much for speaking to us. I'll obviously start by asking you, what is the archaeological perspective for you for the 22nd of January?
Yes, I do think it because, it is the victory of the truth. Because, there was especially, we had to face a lot of questions, a lot of problems from the Marxist historians of JNU and Aligarh University. So their propaganda machinery was very good and it was very well oiled also. And for the first time in the case of Ram Janam Bhoomi, that myth has been shattered. So this is a great day for all of us, not only for the Ram Bhaktas, but even for those people who stand for the truth and for archaeological truth.
Very interesting. You speak of motivated historians specifically from AMU and Jawaharlal Nehru University. But before we speak about them in detail, take us back to those days when you were a young archaeologist. You were involved in the original excavations as far back as 1976 and 77 under Professor B.B. Lal. In fact, subsequently in the 80s, when reports of the antecedents of the site began to be published in the Indian Express, you felt compelled to respond as a young official yourself about what you had managed to unearth in the 1970s. Tell us about those days.
Yeah. So, see, the excavation started in the year 1976-77 under Professor B.B. Lal. We were in the School of Archaeology at that time, and we had gone for the excavation. And whenever we take up the excavation of a work, before that we make an exploration all around the area. So as part of that one, we went into the mosque and we were stopped by a guard. There was a police person. But we told them that we have nothing to do with this one, whether it is a mosque or this one temple. But we are researchers. So he allowed us to go inside. And we went inside. I could see that, all the pillars on which the mosque was standing, that was Hindu temple pillars. Now the question is how to identify, how to distinguish whether it is a Hindu temple or an Islamic temple. Actually, we are precisely being trained for that one, archaeologists. So, in Hindu temples, there will be Purna Kalasha would be there. Purna Kalasha is a symbol of prosperity in Hinduism. It is one of the Ashtamangala Chinnas, 8 auspicious symbols. It was engraved on that one, which of course would not be there in a Muslim mosque. So that was the first one. And then there were certain sculptures also engraved on that one, that is Hindu sculptures. But that was defaced, so it was not very well discernible. Then when Professor Lal excavated on the western side also, on the southern side also, he could get the brick bases on which the temple was standing. So that was the second most convincing evidence. And then during the excavation, a number of sculptures, small sculptures made of terracotta, that was also excavated. So it was on the basis of this conclusive pre-proof. At that time, Professor Lal had come to the conclusion that there was a temple below the mosque. But that was the year 76 and 77. This was not a very big issue. So he did not highlight it as many people wanted. Because, he had described it in a subdued way. So the Marxist historians of JNU and Aligarh Muslim University, they took undue advantage of it. They went to the bazaar saying that Professor Lal had excavated the site and he did not get anything associated with the temple. And hence, there is no need of handing over the site to the Muslim community, to the Hindu community. That is the statement which they had made on almost all the English newspapers. Naturally, Professor Lal had to defend himself and he had to come out and he had to highlight, and he said, no, we have got a number of things associated with the temples. And then I was at that time in Madras. I was working as a deputy superintending archaeologist. So I said what Professor Lal has stated, that is the right thing. that is the correct version of that thing, because a number of things associated with the temples have been excavated from there. And then I also said, none of these people are archaeologists, they are all historians. None of them had visited the site during this excavation period. And even after that also they have not visited the site. So they have no locus standi and they have no domain competence to speak on a purely technical subject. That was my second part. And the third part was, this is because I said that I was the only Muslim who had participated in the excavation. And I have seen all those temple pillars also, the terracotta sculptures also. And the site is as important for the Hindu community as Makkah and Medina are for Muslims. Hence, Muslims should willingly hand it over to Hindu community for constructing a magnificent temple. That was my submission. That was given by the Indian Express on 15th of December 1990, which completely shattered the entire Marxist historian. Because number one, they had no locus standi, they had no domain competence also, none of them had visited the site, none of them had participated in the excavation. Then how would they come with an opinion? So it just completely shattered them, none of them could give me a reply. And from that moment onwards, a different version started coming out.
Well, at least you had the courage, despite a lot of resistance, to put your version and your archaeological version out. But before you responded to the article in the Indian Express, like you said, and put out the version of what you saw, you were warned by your seniors that there is a very powerful Marxist lobby that, you know, you'll face a blowback from them. What was going on in your mind at that time? Did you fear that there would be repercussions on your career?
No, because I Mahadevan was a very top IAS officer. So, I mean, he knows the consequences. And being a government servant, because I was a government servant at that time, you are not supposed to speak on such a very sensitive issue, because it is against the conduct rules. And my condition was very dangerous because, you know, I had not crossed this probation period. If the probation period is not over, then they could dismiss me from the service without even issuing a show cause notice. So I was in such a dangerous condition. So we had discussed about all these things, all the pros and cons of the whole issue. Then at last I took a decision that I was the only Muslim who had participated in the excavation, and it is my duty now, whatever may come, it's my duty now to speak the truth. And I spoke the truth, and the Indian Express carried the news in all its editions. So it had its own wide ramification. As I said, there was no reply at all from the Marxist historian. For the first time, they were cornered.
You know, there's also a wonderful anecdote I was reading about where apparently once you had put out that statement, you were publicly pulled up by the then Director General of the Archaeological Survey and, you know, members of the Cultural Ministry. You were asked how you could make such a public statement, even though you were a junior government official. At that time, you chose to respond to this reprimand by citing some verses from the Gita. Tell us about what you said then.
See, because it was not only Dr. Joshi, Dr. N.C. Joshi, he's a great Sanskrit scholar. And then this one, Dr. R.C. Tripathi, he was the Secretary Culture. They had come to Madras for some other kind of some Silk Road seminar. So they took me and they questioned me, how did you make such a statement? And they were right, because, you know, they had to take action also against me. They were completely right. And they asked me, how did you make such a statement? You are a government servant, when your probation period is not over. You should not have made such a statement, a very, very dangerous and a very sensitive statement. So I told them, because they had a very good impression also about me, because earlier I had done some very good work. So I said that I had done it for a cause. It is a moment where I had to take a decision. And it is for the betterment of the world. And then I quoted from Bhagavad Gita. Loka samsahame vapi sambhashyan kartumohasi. So whatever you do it for the welfare of the world and for the humankind. That was a quotation, which further enraged him, that further provoked him. He said,